You're trying to fix your intimacy, but what if the things you are doing to fix it are actually making it worse? After working with over 400 women, I can tell you there are 5 mistakes I see over and over again. Well-intentioned mistakes, logical seeming mistakes, but mistakes that keep women stuck for years. In this video, I will walk you through the 5 most common intimacy mistakes, explain why each one backfires, and show you what to do instead. If you have been stuck despite your best efforts, one of these is probably why. You are not lazy, you are not ignoring the problem, and you have been trying, but trying has not worked, and you do not understand why. The issue is not effort, the issue is that well-meaning effort in the wrong direction makes things worse, not better. I'm Lauren Wolf, registered psychotherapist and sex therapist. These 5 mistakes come directly from patterns I've seen hundreds of times. They are so common because they seem so logical, but they backfire every time. I'm going to walk you through each mistake, explain why it doesn't work, and give you the alternative that actually does. Mistake 1, trying to increase sex without increasing emotional ease. You schedule intimacy, which in my opinion adds pressure and makes things worse. But maybe you try to get yourself to initiate more, you push yourself to show up, but none of it addresses the underlying tension, distance, or disconnection in the relationship. So the sex feels hollow, obligatory, another task on the list. And instead of rebuilding desire, it reinforces that intimacy is a chore. You cannot build sustainable desire on a foundation of emotional disconnection. The ease has to come first. More sex without ease just creates more evidence that intimacy is a burden. I watch couples try to fix their intimacy by having more of it. They schedule date nights that end in forced sex. They initiate when neither person really wants to, and they end up more disconnected than before because the frequency without the quality doesn't rebuild anything. It just creates more disappointing experiences. Sex without emotional connection feels empty and obligatory. Your body learns that intimacy is something to endure, not enjoy. You reinforce the exact pattern you're actually trying to break. Focus on emotional connection before physical connection. Rebuild ease, safety, and genuine enjoyment of each other's company first. Let sex be the result of connection, not a substitute for it. The second mistake is something almost everyone does when there is tension in the relationship. The second mistake is trying to have intimacy while carrying unresolved resentment. You know something is off. You feel frustrated, unappreciated, or quietly angry. But instead of addressing it, you push through. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You try to be intimate anyway, but your body knows, and your body will not open to someone it is angry or annoyed with, no matter how much your mind tries to override it. Pushing through resentment does not clear it. It buries it deeper and makes intimacy feel like a violation of your own truth. Your body will not betray your truth. If you are resentful, your body will guard every time. Women tell me, I know I shouldn't let it affect our intimacy, but it does affect it. It always does. Resentment is not a mindset issue you can think your way out of. It is an emotional reality that lives in your body. And until it is addressed, your body will protect you by shutting down desire. Unaddressed resentment festers and grows. Intimacy while resentful feels like self-betrayal. Your body learns that intimacy means abandoning your own feelings. Name the resentment, even just to yourself. Address it directly through honest conversation. Do not expect desire to return while significant resentment remains unprocessed. But even when women try to communicate, they often make a third mistake. If you are recognizing these patterns, hit subscribe. I post weekly on what actually works for rebuilding intimacy. And stay until the end because the last 2 mistakes are often the ones I see the most. The third mistake is expressing unmet needs through criticism instead of clear requests. You need more help. You need more emotional connection. You need to feel seen. But instead of saying that directly, it comes out as you never help. You always forget. You don't even notice me. Criticism triggers defensiveness. Your partner stops hearing the need underneath and only hears the attack. They shut down or fight back. Nothing gets resolved and the cycle repeats. Your needs stay unmet, and now there's an additional conflict on top of the other. Criticism is a need in disguise, but your partner cannot hear the need when they are defending against the attack. I ask women, what do you actually need from your partner? And they know instantly. And then I ask, well, how do you usually ask for it? They describe criticism, frustration, or explosive moments after holding it in too long. The need is valid. The delivery guarantees it will not be received, though. Signs you're making this mistake: your quest often starts with "you never" or "you always." Conversations about needs turn into arguments about who is worse. You hold things in until you explode, then feel guilty for how it came out. Your partner gets defensive instead of responsive when you bring things up. Here's what I suggest doing instead. Separate the need from the criticism. Use I statements. I feel overwhelmed. I need more help with, instead of "you never help." Make requests, not complaints. Address needs early before they become resentment that leaks out as attacks. The fourth mistake explains why so many high-functioning women end up in this cycle: taking on everything yourself and then resenting your partner for not helping. You see what needs to be done. You're capable. It's often easier to just do it yourself than to ask, explain, follow up, or deal with it being done differently. So you do it all: the mental load, the emotional labor, the household management, the child logistics. You become the CEO of the relationship, and then you resent him for being an employee who doesn't take initiative. But you trained him to be that way by never leaving room for him to step up. You cannot do everything yourself and then be angry that he doesn't help. Overfunctioning creates the underfunctioning you resent. This pattern is everywhere in capable, high-functioning women. They run the household, anticipate every need, manage every system, and they are exhausted and resentful. But when I ask if they have ever actually stepped back and let their partner take real ownership, the answer is usually no. They do not trust it will be done right, so they keep doing it, and the resentment keeps building. You stay exhausted and depleted. He never develops the skills or initiative because there's no room to. Resentment grows and desire disappears. You feel like his mother, not his partner. So here's what you do instead. Identify where you are overfunctioning. Step back and allow him to take real ownership, even if it's imperfect. Let go of controlling how things are done. Communicate clearly about the division of labor you actually need. Choose one area you're currently doing everything. Have a direct conversation. I need you to fully own this, not help me with it, own it. And step back completely. Don't monitor, remind, or correct. Let him figure it out, even if it takes time. And the fifth mistake is one that underlies almost everything else. The fifth mistake is measuring your current desire against how it felt when you were younger. In your 20s, or early in the relationship, desire might have been spontaneous, intense, effortless. You assume that is what desire is supposed to feel like now. So when it doesn't feel that way, you think something is wrong with you. But desire in long-term relationships is totally different. It's often responsive rather than spontaneous. It requires different conditions. It shows up differently. That isn't dysfunction, that's evolution. Expecting 25-year-old desire in a 45-year-old body is set up for constant disappointment. You are not failing to have desire. You are failing to recognize desire in its current form. Women tell me, I used to want it all the time. Now I never feel the urge. They compare their current selves to their past and think something's wrong with themselves. But the past version had different hormones, different responsibilities, different relationship dynamics. Desire is not supposed to stay the same. It is supposed to evolve. And evolution is not a loss. You pathologize normal changes. You chase a feeling that belongs to different life conditions. You ignore the desire that is actually available to you now. You stay stuck waiting for something that is not coming back in its old form. Think of desire like a river. In your 20s, it might have been a rushing waterfall, loud, intense, impossible to ignore. In a long-term relationship, it becomes a deeper, slower river. Still powerful, still moving, but quieter. If you stand at the river waiting to hear a waterfall, you'll think the water stopped, but it hasn't. It just flows differently. Tonight, do this. Identify which mistakes you're making. Trying to increase sex without emotional ease, pushing through resentment instead of addressing it, using criticism instead of clear requests, overfunctioning and then resenting, expecting desire to feel like your 20s. Most women are making at least 2 or 3, so be honest with yourself. Pick the one that feels most active right now. Which one did you recognize most strongly? Which one are you doing this week? This is your starting point. Apply the alternative. If mistake 1, focus on the one thing that builds emotional ease this week before initiating any physical intimacy. If mistake 2, name one resentment you've been pushing through. Write it down. Decide whether it needs a conversation. If mistake 3, the next time you have a need, express it as an I statement and not a request or a criticism. If mistake 4, Identify one area where you overfunction. Step back completely this week and let your partner own it. If mistake 5, notice if desire shows up differently now, responsive instead of spontaneous, quieter but still present. Stop waiting for the old version and track what changes. When you stop making the mistake, what shifts? This is how you learn what has actually been keeping you stuck. These mistakes feel productive because you are doing something, but doing the wrong thing keeps you stuck. Stopping the wrong thing creates space for the right thing to work. Most women have been trying hard, but in the wrong direction. Redirecting your effort is what finally creates change. You are not stuck because you are not trying. You are stuck because well-intentioned effort in the wrong direction creates more of what you do not want. More disconnected sex, more buried resentment, more criticism instead of connection, more doing everything yourself, and more comparing yourself to who you used to be. Now you know what to stop doing, and stopping the wrong thing is often more powerful than starting something new. If you recognize yourself in these mistakes, you need to understand what is actually blocking your desire underneath them. Watch the 5 intimacy blockers keeping you stuck. That video gives you a deeper diagnosis of what is in the way, and it connects directly to the patterns we talked about today.